Good afternoon and welcome to our LinkedIn Live here today with Gina London, as usual, ex-CNN White House correspondent. And then we also have James Lutit with us today, which is actually, normally there's three of us today. I'm going to take a little back seat, I think. But James Lutit is Ireland's leading project management expert. And he's also the author of Leading Impactful Teams. So we're going to be talking about impactful leadership and how impactful people lead impactful teams. So first of all, Gina, welcome back. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. And I'm so happy to be here, Sam. And James, I'm really happy to have you with us today and to be with you today because the idea of individual leaders, how they impact teams, this is something, the more voices that can get out on it, the more important. And you have wonderful, different background and experiences that have led you to your great encouragement. And so I'm eager to have us all here together, sharing and reinforcing one another.
Yeah, I think this is going to be good fun. Like it's really great. The couple of chats that Gina and I have had in other places before, you realize just how much overlap there is between the personal impact that you talk a lot about, and then the team impact that I'm so interested in. And actually, like, I've even kind of watched some of your videos and I'm like, yeah, I say the same thing. So there's a huge amount of overlap between the two things. And I think it's really interesting to unpack that and drill into it a little bit more.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, James, for people who don't know you that might be watching.
Yeah, so my career was in project management. And up until 2016, I was running bigger and bigger projects and programs. In 2016, I had a very severe life experience, which was to do with building up the stress and the pressure and trying to run too many things at the same time. And off the back of that, I ended up in hospital, and that forms I won't spoil it for anybody who wants to read the book, but that forms the kind of introduction to my book. But off the back of that, I stood back and started thinking about how I was dealing with my life and what I was up to. And I became the head of project management competency for a big bank here in Ireland, and started learning and figuring out all these problems and challenges that people had that weren't going to be fixed by a methodology or a particular set of documentation, but actually came down to the people stuff. So I started really studying that stuff and getting really interested. And turns out that that's really good for your career, because mine then took off. And now what I do is I work with some of the biggest companies in Ireland and starting to go a bit more international as well, helping their teams to become more impactful and deliver better value for the organization and help to reduce the stress that we all suffer, or a lot of us suffer when we're working on high pressure environments.
And I know you've a lot of experience in that. And Gina, impactful leader, what does that mean to you? Like someone being an impactful leader?
Well, because I have the privilege of working with leaders all over the world, I was just in Kuwait, for example, a couple of weeks ago with senior leaders there. The personal responsibility is one of the key tenets. So I like to put into what I call my ADD principle. So awareness, desire, and discipline. That might be the responsibility piece. Heightening your awareness on who you are and how you communicate, because everything's communications. Then stoking the desire, because if you have awareness from a 360 or some sort of performance review and you don't care, or you don't want to change or modify or reinforce the areas that are doing well and modify those that aren't, then you're not going to increase your impact. And finally, then the daily work. There are ways to do it. So your behavior, your communication choices, your modifications, those are all up to you, and they change your mindset. They change the way you think about yourself, and they impact your team. So awareness, desire, discipline.
Awareness, desire, discipline. I must type that one out for you in the comments. And for you, James, what about you? Like, what is an impactful leader to you, and then an impactful team?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would echo a lot of the things that you're saying, Gina, but I might say them in slightly different ways. I think for me that one of the things that I was told early in my career is that I'm enthusiastic, positivity, and you've put that word desire. I think if you can show people that you're driven and you're going to be enthusiastic about whatever it is you're doing, that's a big way of having a bigger impact. People like to engage with that. And the word you use there, discipline, like I would talk a lot about behavior, and like behavior, like culture is really, really hard to change, but culture is just behavior times a million. So, and actually behavior is kind of what you're talking about. It's discipline. It's how you turn up. It's how you show up. It's what you do in a moment. And that is actually quite hard to change for other people. But for you as an individual, it's something you can just do differently. And if you're getting kind of constant, I love feedback loops and ways of learning things. So for me, I think there's a huge piece around constantly learning and improving and finding things out that are going to be useful for whatever the situation is that you're in from a personal perspective.
Yeah, and by the way, if anyone is watching today, please do comment, and we might feature your comment on the screen, so you'll get a bit of attention as well. Gina, you're known for helping executives and leaders in particular strengthen their executive presence and their emotional intelligence. So, like, how do these qualities really help a leader? I suppose I can kind of imagine emotional intelligence helping a leader, but what about the executive presence?
Well, executive presence is simply how you impact others, how people perceive you. And by the way, anyone who's listening, we'd also love to hear where you're from. So if you're tuning in right now, if you want to pop in a chat, just where you're coming from, it'd be great to see who we've got with us right now, because you always feel like you're monologuing,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
But I would say that first piece again around the awareness is that understanding how people perceive you is the first component to taking that responsibility, because a lot of people say, oh, they need to get to know me, or they just need to get to know the real me. But executive presence is simply the perception other people have of you from your outward behaviors, the word that James used, over time. So how consistent are you? How actively emotionally regulated are you, depending upon who that team is, what that communication event is, and everything is a communication event. So I often say to my clients, understand your audience, know your goal for them, and then craft that message. And you can do that really quickly beforehand. You can practice things out loud. You can start to muscle memory these behaviors, become your new pattern. It might start out like design, but then it becomes default over time. But be aware of your current patterns and then start to take stock of them so that you can modify them. Because guess what? People don't get to know the real you. They only can know the you that you present. And that's so important.
We have a question. What is meant by impactful? From Vinaj.
I'll
Would you like to take
I'll
that?
give it to James, since we've got the
James. Yeah.
Impactful Teams book right here from James, but I'll take a crack after he's done.
Yeah, like for me, like impact is about outcomes, like what actually happens in the end, as opposed to outputs, maybe, which is work or things that we're doing. So if we're talking about personal impact, does the person that I'm interacting with go away feeling like the way that I want them to feel about me, and having the thoughts or the feelings that I want them to have? When it comes to team impact, which is where I play a lot of my stuff, is did we create great outcomes for our organization and for the individuals within our team? So, you know, if people are ambitious, did they get promoted? If people want to have a work-life balance, did they get that? But also, like, looking up the chain, is the CFO happy with our project, right? Did we make more sales from what we were trying to do? Or did we put in a system that people are using and loving and is making their life easier? For me, that's the thing. It's really focusing on outcomes rather than outputs. Like, we can all do things. It's really easy to work. And in fact, there's an infinite amount of work. The question is, are you working on the right stuff? And that, for me, when it comes to team impact, is a lot of what I talk about.
Yeah, and in your book, you actually mentioned leading in a more human-centered way. What does that look like, James?
Yeah, I mean, coming back to Gina, a lot of us, those of us that are probably more used to the public stage or kind of, operating in various places, we kind of reach a level where some of the things that Gina talks about I would what you're describing there, what I would call fake it till you make it, right? If you're not confident, just
I
pretend
would
to be
never call
confident.
it that, but go on.
You would never call it
Yeah,
that.
no, me too.
Okay, well, I would. I fake it till I make it.
I'll unpack that in a minute, but go on.
Yeah, let's come to that, right? So I would behave confidently, and then I think people, eventually you do just build confidence. But I do think there's a piece around how you turn up and how you operate that makes a big difference as well. And I think sometimes those of us that have got that maybe a bit more confidence in that space, we then need to give space to our teams. We need to realize that perhaps we can become a bit overbearing. Perhaps we do know lots and lots of things, and maybe that our personal impact is starting to deter or take away from our team's ability to impact. And that's quite a dangerous balance to strike the more senior you get in your career.
Wow.
If I can pick up on that, because I think just what James touched on there is important to remind everyone. The idea of impact is not necessarily, it's presumed to be positive in the context of what James is promoting, obviously, and what he's talking about with outcomes. But when he just touched on there is that if you're not continually actively focusing as a leader on your behavior, on your communication style, on the choices that you are actively making, your impact is never neutral.
Yeah.
Your impact to that team, to those colleagues, to those direct reports is somewhere on a timeline of either more positive, building the relationship, or slightly or even profoundly negatively. And so that impact can go in either direction. The important thing here is, and that's why I push it back against the idea of faking it, because when you understand the why and the what that these things are, then you can start to incrementally begin to develop the why, the how rather, of how you can behave. And it's not fake, it's genuine desire to impact in a positive way. And so that calls again for that responsible small modifications. You're not going to come in one day and be completely different than you were the next. That's not what we're talking about. But we are talking about understanding different situations, different choices you can make that you might have been typically making. And now how can you modify that? What's a new framework for how you give feedback? What's a new way that you pause and ask a follow-up question and don't rush to give a solution to your team so that they can be empowered and they can discover things? That's a little bit of a difference. And again, with the idea that you are committed to positive impact.
Yeah. And I think as you build teams, as you start working, leading teams, that opportunity to make impact is multiplied. And it's the way that you go about doing that can often open up in different opportunities. So exactly what you describe and how you listen to people, how you engage with your behavior, we're not necessarily talking about standing up on front of a stage and waving your arms around, like that one-to-one moment where you actually sit back. I'm very tactical on this stuff. I sometimes know that I need to stop talking, and you'll see me do this, right? I put because I find that hard to do.
Language of actually doing that is important because it can be a really powerful reminder to disrupt that pattern. Agreed, James. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're learning so much here today. Actually, Olga has mentioned, I want to give a shout out to the people watching, James and Gina. So Olga is here. She's joining us from Dublin.
Hi, Olga.
And Deborah is joining us from Wexford. And Neil is joining us from Mayo. So, and Olga also mentioned confidence in leaders promotes confidence in their teams, followed by ownership and accountability. I think in your book as well, James, you do mention low stress success.
Yeah.
What's that mean? What's that all about? Is there such a thing?
I think there is. And I think there's a lot of things, there's a lot of mistakes that people make, and I've made them and I still make them. Particularly back in 2016, I was aiming for success, but I wasn't too worried about the amount of stress that I was putting myself and my team under. And that's where the explosion in my personal life happened. And the trip to hospital and all of that stuff. So for me, there's some big things that we can do to make sure that we're working on the right things. I do think if we can, when I talk about low stress success, I often think about prioritization as how you go about deciding what you do and what you don't do. And when I was lying back in that hospital bed in 2016, my brother's kind of cool. He's got a big beard and long hair, and he plays the guitar, and he makes harps for a living. And he sent me a lovely video, which I still have, of him playing the Bare Necessities from the Jungle Book, Baloo the Bear. And in there's a line where Baloo talks about pawpaws and prickly pears, and high value, low effort things. And I think if you can find the gap between value of what you're delivering or doing and the effort that it takes, that's where low stress success sits. If you can deliver very, very high value things to people for very, very low amounts of energy, you're going to have huge amounts of low stress success. If you're delivering value and effort that kind of equal, you're just surviving. And God forbid, if you're doing the other thing, low value, high effort stuff, huge amounts of negative stress in there, because you're not really making progress. You're not achieving the goals that need to do. So for me, standing back and looking at what we work on and seeing the value that it delivers and trying to do it as easily as possible, that's a really great way to think about low stress success.
Brilliant. And the comments are flying in here. Actually, I think this is someone you know. Leonard has said a long time since Big Bank, building a what? You can read the comment there. Is really important for remote. Identify new leaders, allow us to spread thinner and leave DNA behind. But I have a lovely one here from a LinkedIn user. Hi, Sam. Can your guests talk to getting things wrong, making mistakes?
Well,
Gina,
I'll kick off real quickly and own, certainly I make mistakes. I continue to make mistakes. And when we're talking with leaders or I'm coaching leaders or executive teams around the concept of making mistakes, the whole idea of psychological safety is the notion back in the 90s of a group of doctors in a hospital. And one hospital had a culture where they were able to talk about their mistakes. And then there was another one where there was a culture where they weren't allowed to talk about the mistakes. And the results were, of course, the ones that they were able to talk and share about their mistakes ultimately led to better patient outcomes, James' word. And the ones where they were reporting fewer mistakes, it turned out that they actually weren't talking about them and they had not as good patient outcomes. So when you can encourage people to share mistakes, own mistakes, and that means the leaders at the beginning to be responsible, talk about it. What's the lesson that we learned? What can we modify from this? That's going to create that culture of psychological safety, of giving opinions, of sharing lessons and other things that they've learned. And being able to have a speak up culture is, I think, critical in order to innovate, to be able to have teams that feel more cohesive and ultimately lead to more and faster and more effective positive outcomes and impact.
Yeah, love that. And I think there's a thing there, like the way we talk about blame culture, for example, if we're in that place, trying to say, we don't want to have a blame culture. This is not good. For me, I'd love to take a step back from that, actually, and build a help culture. Right? If I can get my team into a place where they're comfortable asking for help, then all of a sudden those problems, the mistakes that could have happened or that do happen, they become my problem. And that's good. That's what I want. I want to see the things that happen. And then I'd love to take this idea of putting the problem out there, like on a Post-it note or on a status report or something. So it's not you against me, it's you and me against the problem. Right? There's a problem there. How are we going to solve it? However we got to where we are, that's a problem, and let's you and me work on it. So I do think one of the tactical things that we can do to avoid that sort of blame culture or like to embrace mistakes is encourage people to ask for help. And then the response is, if there's a mistake, well, next time, that's okay. You can ask for help. And I think that over time can build into what I would call an impactful team.
And if I can add one thing, is what James said, because I think this is where the communications piece is really important. When he just shared so well about the leader and the team member getting together around that problem. And the way to do that, the how then is, don't make it implicit. Don't make people have to assume that that's the culture. If you've said it once, say it again, because people forget. So as a leader, it's important to reset the room, to remind people, hey, this is a safe space. Hey, we're going to celebrate our mistakes. Hey, we're here to empower you to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Please ask for help. Who asked for help this week? Keep repeating it
over and over again. Yeah, I love it.
Yes. And I think a lot of times I've had leaders talk to me about how they facilitate their weekly meetings or how they do their one-on-one check-ins. And they say, I start to feel like they've already heard it. I said, yeah, but they need to hear it again.
Mm.
And you don't want to necessarily say it exactly the same way in the same order every time, because then it can become rote and less impactful, or they don't take it, they feel like it's not as meaningful. But don't forget to keep reminding yourself and them of this is where we are, this is who we are, this is how we approach things. Because sometimes I've had leaders go, oh, well, they know, it's inferred.
Yeah.
Be very explicit, not implicit, so that they're reminded and that they're encouraged around what your culture is. Don't expect them to know it. Remind them and help them contribute to it as well.
It's like I got asked about social media policy recently, and it was like, yeah, sometimes, people just give them a sheet and they just sign it, but like they don't really read it. Like, so it's like you need to kind of do it regularly and do it in person, not just, here, read that and sign that, because especially in this world of social media. But James, I do want to go back to you, if you don't mind, because I think that question, I think it's from Megan Flynn Dixon, about getting things wrong and making mistakes. Have you anything you might want to share about that?
Yeah, I mean, I make mistakes all the time, all the time. Like there's a really interesting book that I read recently. I think it's by a chap called Dan Lawrence, called The Gap and the Gain. And there's this piece where we look at what we could achieve. Right, we look at where we could be. We could have delivered our project on time, on budget, with very happy stakeholders. Hooray! And actually, we delivered our project 10% over, and like that, stakeholders are a bit annoyed. But right. And we measure ourselves to the perfection. And actually, if you look back and see what you did, like the gain that you've achieved since you started can be massive. So those of us that are particularly ambitious and set high goals, we have a North Star that we're gonna, like, I would like to fix project management for the whole world. And why have I not done that yet? Oh, I could get really depressed about that. But we're getting there. We're making big progress. And so I do think how we hold ourselves to account is really important. But then also not so much beating ourselves, definitely not beating ourselves up about mistakes that we do make, but learning from them. Right? Whoops, I did that thing wrong. It's useful to spot that I did that thing wrong, and maybe that upset someone, or it caused a problem, or I didn't fix something that I could have fixed. What can I do differently next time, right? And how do I constantly, iteratively try and make myself better, not perfect, like better today than I was yesterday? That's the goal.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, same with me. Like, I it's like if we make a mistake, it's what you do about it. It's like living in the solution rather than the problem. I always say that. So for anyone who's here, I see somebody Lucy says she loved your book, by the way. There's a nice comment from Lucy.
Thanks, Lucy.
So Olga is here as well. So the name of the book there, do you want to talk a little bit about the book, James, actually? Why not, while you're here?
Thanks very much. So the book's called Leading Impactful Teams. And I thought I was writing it for project managers. I thought I was writing it for people like me who love to geek out on Gantt charts and estimating things and that kind of stuff. But I did want to simplify it down and make it easy for new project managers. And so I went down with cartoons and stories and ways of explaining things that I would like to explain to my kids or people who don't know this world. And it turns out everybody's a project manager, and actually lots and lots of people read the book and get quite a lot of value from just some of the tips and ideas. And I'm very tactical. I love little things that I can do, like in the next hour, this is how I'm going to run a meeting. Or this is a little technique that I can use to make sure that the meeting stays on track, or that the team prioritize the right things. Really tactical things, because I think it's really important to have good mindset and positivity and direction. But what do you do now? Right? That's the thing that I'm really interested in. And that's what I've tried to fill the book with.
Well, actually, do you know what we're going to do? We're going to give a piece of advice from both of you for the audience. If you want to kind of leave our audience with just one piece of advice to help them be more impactful leaders starting tomorrow. Gina.
Oh, thanks for that, Sam. The first thing I would say to anyone is to assess before you respond. And that's even just that simple amount of someone's asking you something, someone sending you an email, someone's requesting something, someone's saying something, and you've heard this before, this idea of pausing before you respond. That can feel stilted. That's a great bit of advice that is a lot harder to do. Oh, count to 3. Are you going to really look like a, I don't know, a statue when someone's asking you, go, it feels weird. So it's one of those great recommendations. But what I would encourage you to do is give yourself a runway line. So you can say, I appreciate that, or thanks for saying that, or I hear you, or give me a moment to reflect on that. Go ahead and give the cooking show patter about what you're doing, which is to say,
I have this up here. I appreciate your point. I wrote this down from the last show, James, right?
fine. And someone can push back and say, oh, we don't really appreciate the point if you don't understand it. But the idea here is to use words to buy you time to assess. And so what you're doing, rather than that awkward 3-second count, you're actually letting your mind, your vocal cords, your leadership focus get into play before you rush. And this is a disruptive thing because most of us are wired to react and not respond. And rather than do the awkward 3-second count, go ahead and say, thanks for your question. I hear your point. Okay, Sam, even say, let me reflect. And you're managing the expectation of the other person, and you're regulating your own emotion and response. That is a small but significant step to becoming a more positively impactful leader. Stop rushing, stop reacting, start assessing, and then you can respond.
Love it. James, same question
So I'm going to build on that reactive word, right? That reacting thing, but I'm going to take it in a slightly different direction. I think there's 3 types of work that we work on, us and our teams and our organizations: reactive, proactive, and planned work, right? So think of a project plan that you're going to do this, then you can do this, and this is when things are going to happen. So much of our time is sucked up by that reactive work, particularly the team that we're working. Junior people end up often doing very, very reactive work. And what I'd rather do is look at the work that we're doing, stand back, think about those pawpaws and prickly pears, the high value, low effort things, and stick them on a to-do list, your proactive work. And time box and squeeze that reactive stuff down into a smaller place as is reasonable, plan things out, and then get your to-do list. High value, low effort things at the top, and just work down that. For you and for your team, like they can actually do that as well. And actually, this is just learning from a thing called Scrum or Kanban in the world of agile software. But I think we can all learn from that and actually just work down a really impactful to-do list. So that would be my little tip.
I love it.
What about you, Sam?
Me? Oh gosh. I suppose the biggest tip I could thank you. The biggest tip I could give would be to just listen more. You've 2 ears and 1 mouth. So the most effective thing that I've had to keep learning is just listen.
2 tips on that and how to elicit, because from the coaching world, when you are someone's explaining something, our natural instinct might be to jump into the solution or to go into whatever we would do as the next thing to say, and try instead, for example, saying, and what else? Or tell me more. And those 2 can, again, buy you time, help them explain some more, get a little more out so you can make a more thoughtful response at the end of it. But also because a lot of people, when they're sharing something in a feedback session or even in a project update, they might say what they expect you want to hear as a leader at the beginning. And then if you give them a little more space by saying, tell me more, or and what else, which is different than, is there anything else? Because that's a yes or no. So, and what else gives them space. And oftentimes you'll get to the real crux of the problem with a question like that as a follow-up.
Oh, lovely tip. Nice tip. So, James, where can people get your book if they want to buy your book?
Yeah, the book's available most places. So on online stores. It's not necessarily in all the bookshops, but it is available online. But we've also got the audiobook. So I went last
Oh.
summer, and a friend of mine has a little recording studio with cardboard boxes and things on his walls, and I stayed with him for a week and recorded it. So the book is available on Spotify, on Audible, on all those places.
Lovely.
Particularly those listening. People love to listen on their commutes, when they're out for a walk, those kind of places. So it's available in lots of those places. Some of them free as well. So have a little look around and see if you can find it. Spotify, Audible, those kind of places.
And you have such an enthusiastic, listenable voice, if I may. I think it would be a real delight. I've read the book, but to listen to the book, I think would be a whole other experience. So that's great.
I do get excited at points in it. And there's one point where I sing, but just ignore
Ooh.
Okay. For anybody watching, Olga, thank you. I love the little comments. Write sticky note in brackets, and they're all writing sticky notes here. So
there is something around silent writing in the book, which is very powerful.
Okay.
Sticky notes.
Okay, and for you, James, if anyone wanted to work with you or was interested in connecting with you, I put your LinkedIn up here, but it's not a link. We'll have to put it in the comments afterwards, folks, and I will. Okay, but if you want to connect with LinkedIn, it's James Lutit, and you can find him on LinkedIn, and he will connect with you. And Gina London, of course. And Gina, we do this every month, folks. We do a little LinkedIn Live. So if there's any comments of any topic you'd like us to cover next month, please put it in the comments and we will do our best to cover that. So anything to add before we wrap up?
I have absolutely enjoyed this time to be able to bounce off ideas together and reinforce these ideas from different perspectives with James. Thanks so much for this, James.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's always great. It's always great chatting with you, Gina, and Sam. Really nice to meet you, and thanks so much for having us.
You're welcome. And folks, we'll see you next time on our LinkedIn Live.